when I am alone in the half-light of the canyon, all existence seems to fade to a being with my soul and memories, and the sounds of the big Blackfoot River and a 4-count rhythm, and the hope that a fish will rise. Eventually, all things merge into one, and a river runs through it. The river was cut by the world's great flood and runs over rocks from the basement of time. On some of the rocks are timeless raindrops. Under the rocks are the words, and some of the words are theirs. I am haunted by waters.
Robert Redford is gone, and I just thought that was a good little tribute to him from A River Runs Through It. I was looking at some of his famous quotes and things he'd said and done. Speak out for what you believe and what you feel, or don't. You have to live with yourself. Robert Redford, 89 years old, a legend, and I just thought that would be a good way to start today's show. But now, let's do the normal thing. Stand up. All right, we are off, and I am happy to have you here today. It is Wednesday, and I've got JL Cauvin joining me coming up. Our conversation begins at 38 minutes, but I've also got your headlines and a clip show for you, so I want to get to it, but I can't do any of it without your support. Patreon.com/Pete Dominic. This is an ad-free show. You don't find those very often. I'm here every day of the week, or I try to be, with your news and one of the smartest people I can find, and there are a whole bunch of them that join me regularly, like JL Cauvin, and new people all the time. Let me know who you want to hear. standupwithpete@gmail.com is my email for that, and anything else. All right, we are off. Let's do it.
It's Pete's Headlines and Clip Show. Get in on the shit show.
Let's hit those headlines from the last 24 hours or so. The suspect in the Charlie Kirk killing is facing the death penalty. A 22-year-old man who was arrested last week, accused of assassinating the prominent right-wing political activist Charlie Kirk in Utah. Formally charged yesterday with aggravated murder, prosecutors said they would seek the death penalty. Court documents filed along with the charges shed more light on his possible motive. In a series of messages exchanged with his romantic partner after the shooting, he said he had killed Kirk because he had had enough of his hatred. And that's pretty much the only detail that we've gotten, and some people are not sure they want to trust wherever these messages came from. Nonetheless, everybody is jumping to their conclusions, and the firings, the targeting has been well underway. It's really tough to actually keep track of how many people now have lost their jobs as a result, or been attacked or targeted as a result of comments they made around Charlie Kirk. Last night, in my neck of the woods, in the Orangetown School District, they had a school board meeting because one of the board members made a comment about Charlie Kirk, and I listened to the first. I was going to go to the meeting, but I couldn't make it. But I listened to it last night, at least the first 20 minutes of it, and the people were going absolutely batshit crazy to the point where I felt very concerned about that one man's safety. But it's very ugly. Very, very ugly, these people and their love of Charlie Kirk and their hatred for anybody who said anything about him in his death. And so the firings continue, and the targeting doesn't look like it's going to end anytime soon. Attorney General Pam Bondi has provoked quite a broad backlash, announcing that she would target protesters who engaged in free speech. So some, even on the right, are saying that she shouldn't be doing this. So even Matt Walsh right-wing influencer like Charlie Kirk. He said, get rid of her today. This is insane. Conservatives have fought for decades for the right to refuse service to anyone. We won that fight. Now Pam Bondi wants to roll it back for no reason. Well, she has a great reason. Her boss is a tyrant and doesn't like anybody speaking out against him. And you saw that yesterday when reporters asked him questions while he was getting on his helicopter, and he attacked them. And I'll bring you the audio of that coming up in the clip show, but it's crazy. Also yesterday, Kash Patel, the FBI director and man who looks like he's afraid of his own shadow, traded barbs with senators at a Senate hearing. He is also under fire from agents at his own FBI that he is in charge of for being just an absolute irresponsible dick. But that hearing was also very ugly yesterday. What else can I tell you? A UN commission investigating the war, Israel invasion of Gaza has said that Israel is committing genocide in Gaza now. A UN commission now saying that. Satellite images are showing Israel's buildup around Gaza City, and the exodus from Gaza City is underway, and it is not pretty, to say the least. Yesterday, the Trump regime ordered a Civil War era image of a formerly enslaved man with scars on his back to be removed from a national park site in Georgia. They specifically asked one image to be removed, an image that is indelible and important and should be there, has been asked to be removed because they are literally trying to erase history. A lot of questions around a young man who was found, a young black man found hanging from a tree, as there always should be, at Mississippi's Delta State University. His name was Trey Reed, and I'm seeing when I look this up, two young men now were found hanging. Another named Corey Zucatis was found hanging near Ameristar Casino in Vicksburg. So now authorities in Mississippi are investigating two separate incidents involving men found hanging within 24 hours, raising alarms, prompting calls for transparency as communities grapple with shock and grief. It's hard to read. It's hard to say. And I'm not going to say it's hard to believe because this is America with 3 Ks, but I wouldn't trust the officials here at all. I mean, this is crazy, and I hope that we can stay on top of this and somehow get it investigated appropriately. The fact that 2 men were found hanging in separate Mississippi cities on the same day? Nah, that's a lot. That's just way too much. But officials saying that the no foul play is suspected. I mean, they are officials in Mississippi, so take that for whatever it's worth, which ain't much. What else do I have for you? Let's stay in the South, where Georgia's highest court has declined to consider Fulton County District Attorney Fonnie Willis's appeal of her removal from the Georgia election interference case against President Donald Trump and others. Today, the former director of the CDC is set to tell a Senate panel that she was fired for holding the line on scientific integrity. Susan Monarez is set to testify in front of the Senate Health Committee today, and I'm very much looking forward to that. I should have clips for you tomorrow. The hearing also set to feature Dr. Deborah Ori, the CDC's former chief medical officer and one of 3 leaders who recently quit the agency in frustration. So that should be a big deal today. Blockbuster story investigated and reporting from the New York Times says that Trump's imposed tariffs on China has stopped them from buying American soybeans. That's real bad. They say that decision has had devastating repercussions for farmers in North Dakota, which exported more than 70% of its soybeans to China before Trump unveiled the new tariffs this year. So unless China agrees to restart its purchases as part of the trade deal, farmers that depend on Chinese market will be facing steep losses that could fuel farm bankruptcies and farm foreclosures around the United States. Big story at the New York Times. Over at U.S. News and World Report, in addition, they're reporting that droughts and flooding from climate change, as well as higher costs for fertilizer and equipment, were cutting into operations on farms even before Trump's tariffs hit. The U.S. used to be China's top source for soybeans, as I mentioned there in the New York Times story, but China has replaced the output of U.S. farmers with soybeans from Brazil. Cuts to food programs have hit small producers, while the administration's crackdowns on undocumented immigration have created shortages for workers. The U.S. News and World Report says there were more farm bankruptcies by the end of July than in all of 2024. Wow. The administration caused this. The regime caused this and appears to be considering providing emergency aid for farmers as it did during the trade wars of Trump's first term. So bailouts for farmers, taxpayer money for farmers to make good for the fact that they can't sell their crops. I think they'd probably rather sell their crops that they grew and worked really hard on to feed whatever they are feeding than take a bailout from hardworking Americans. But that's the deal. This report from Olivier Knox, by the way, notes that agriculture, food, and related industries contributed about $1.5 trillion to the economy, and about 5.5% of gross domestic product in 2023, making up about 22.1 million jobs. So this is a huge employment sector, obviously, and we're about to see it be decimated, it would seem. CNN is reporting that Americans' credit scores are falling at the fastest pace since the Great Recession as Americans struggle to keep up with the high cost of living and return of student debt payments. The average FICO score, which assesses a borrower's creditworthiness, dropped by 2 points this year, the largest drop since 2009. I'll have that report in the clip show as well. And Forbes is reporting that the officials who launched the raid on Hyundai plant in Georgia, which has caused an uproar in South Korea after U.S. officials arrested more than 300 Korean workers, they had a warrant to look for 4 people from Mexico. But once the officials were there, they decided to, meet the quotas established by the White House Deputy Chief of Staff by arresting South Koreans because they're idiots and they caused an international incident as a result. Oh, I should have mentioned this one under the story of the federal government just literally erasing history. The Department of Justice yesterday, under Trump and Pam Bondi, has removed a study showing that white supremacist and far-right violence continues to outpace all other types of terrorism and domestic violent extremism in the United States. The study was conducted by the National Institute of Justice, hosted on the website for the Department of Justice, was available at least till September 12th, 2025, according to an archive of the page that was saved by the Wayback Machine. They tried to remove it, but we caught them. And at least we did that. Credit to PhD student Daniel Marmer, who was studying online extremism at UNC Chapel Hill, who first noticed that the paper was deleted. And finally, you'll probably hear from news from the UK because our Mad King has made a historic state visit with a royal reception there. The first elected political leader in modern times to be hosted for 2 state visits by a British monarch. He already had been hosted by Queen Elizabeth back in 2019. The president and his wife, Melania Trump, who is the first lady, I told you she never would be, but she is, again. They're going to attend a state banquet with the royal family in Windsor tonight. When they got there, apparently, somehow activists had cast a picture on the castle that he was staying at. I don't know how they did this, but it's a picture and videos. Also, they projected them on the wall of the castle of Trump and Jeffrey Epstein. So that's pretty awesome and hilarious, and you love to see it. All right, those are the news headlines I've got for you, and now it's time to get to the clip show. All right, let's get these 2 awful sounding clips of our Mad King out of the way. I think they're important to hear his words. I know a lot of people get triggered by them. They're not long, but this is him attacking 2 separate reporters yesterday while he was going to his helicopter. So the audio is, I think you can hear it. But first, it's Jon Carroll who he attacks and threatens, actually. And his threats are becoming obviously more and more real and actionable on a daily basis because everybody that works for him is so performative and wants to make daddy proud. Here is this one.
And what do you make Pam Bondi saying she's going to go after hate speech? A lot of your allies say hate speech is free speech.
We'll probably go after people like you because you treat me so unfairly. It's hate. You have a lot of hate in your heart. Maybe they'll come after ABC. Well, ABC paid me $16 million recently for a form of hate speech, right? Your company paid me $16 million for a form of hate speech. So maybe they'll have to go after you. Look, we want everything to be fair. It hasn't been fair. And the radical left has done.
All right. Well, you know, he went on his diatribe you've heard before. After that, I won't subject you to the rest of that nonsense. But then he went after an Australian reporter, which I thought was really mean. The Australian reporter asked him about this major story yesterday. It's going undercovered, obviously, like everything else, of the scandalous business deal he made with the UAE. And Trump basically told him that all of Australia should be really upset with the reporter.
It is appropriate, President Trump, that a president in office should be engaged in so much business activity.
Well, I'm really not. My kids are running the business. I'm here. You know what the activity, where are you from?
I'm from the Australian Broadcasting Corporation, Four Corners program.
Well, the Australians, you're hurting Australia, right? In my opinion, you are hurting Australia very much right now. And they want to get along with me. You know, your leader is coming over to see me very soon. I'm going to tell him about you. You set a very bad tone.
Well,
go ahead, John.
Maybe
you can set a nicer tone.
The UAE does a deal. What does it want in return?
Quiet.
All right. He just says quiet to him. And I think those clips are out of order. I think then he went to Jon Carroll. So, yeah, that was pretty weird and upsetting. And sorry for my little laughs and giggles. I don't know how else to react sometimes when hearing the insanity of this man on a regular basis. I suppose it's a little coping glitch of mine. All right, let's go to those Senate hearings yesterday with Kash Patel. Here is North Carolina Senator and Republican Tom Tillis, one of the only on the panel Republicans that asked anything critical that I could tell, that I've heard. But I thought this was interesting. He's, of course, not running for re-election, so he's trying to be a little bit more forthright and honest, but still a total bad actor, Tom Tillis, trying to clean up that act. But here he is saying, maybe both sides need to tone down the rhetoric. Cash.
Now, how on earth, within 24 hours of Mr. Kirk's shooting, we had the guy that does the podcast for the War Room and another guy who's denied the Sandy Hook shootings say we're at war. Now, how on earth, and I do believe it's a smaller number, but it's a number that has an influence. How on earth are we de-escalating the situation? And with the tensions as high as they were last week, with going out and saying we're at war. I'm not asking you to respond to this question. I'm just saying that there are people out here on our side of the aisle that still need to look in the mirror. Even if you agree that it's a lower number, bad is bad no matter how many numbers they are. And that kind of rhetoric and that kind of mobilization makes your job more difficult and puts us in a position where we're not being as productive as you want the FBI and state and local law enforcement to be.
All right. Well, there were a lot of fireworks at that hearing yesterday, and I did not grab them. Sorry. I probably should have grabbed some clips from Cory Booker and Adam Schiff and Kash Patel screaming at Adam Schiff, performing for an audience of one, of course. And that's the only reason he was there. He didn't have to be there. He wanted to go up there and be performative for the king, I think it's fair to say. But moving on, here is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez yesterday. They had a hearing in the House Energy Committee, and the Department of Energy top counsel, guy named Novak, I believe, was the witness. And AOC asked him if he knew how many job losses there were as a result of all the canceling of renewable energy investment. I think this is pretty important. A couple minutes here. I wanted to give this one to you.
Do you know how many jobs have been threatened or lost due to the Trump administration's closures of clean energy projects in the last 6 months or so, the first half of this year?
I'm not aware of any such analysis.
91,000. Trump administration and Department of Energy policies have cost Americans 91,000 jobs nationwide in rollbacks on efficiency. And, these large numbers are statistics. They're hard to, I think, people to understand when they show up on a white paper. But in Colorado's 8th district, Amprius Technologies canceled plans to construct a $190 million battery plant in Brighton, Colorado. In that same district, actually, another company, VSK Energy, canceled plans due to the Trump administration, canceled their plans to build solar panels, and they scratched a $250 million investment and up to 900 jobs in that same district. In Georgia, 12, an EV plant was canceled due to the Trump administration and DOE's freezing of the EV charging program. Registered Georgia has a population of 157 people. They lost out on 166 jobs. They lost more jobs than they have people in that town because of the cancellation and war on renewable energy and clean energy here. In that same district, a copper foil manufacturing plant went bankrupt as a result of these rollbacks, and Augusta, Georgia lost out on 350 jobs. And the list goes on. In South Carolina, 250 jobs when a construction of an EV plant in Florence was halted due to DOE's freezing of funds. We could go on. In Michigan 10th, 167 jobs were lost after $50 million worth of investment. These are all freezes in renewable and clean energy construction and development projects. This is an industry that has been a source of jobs and growth. This administration, the Trump administration, is destroying the American economy, destroying American jobs. 91,000 jobs in this sector alone. I have one simple question. In these towns and areas, what is the DOE's plan to replace those jobs in those affected areas?
I'll say this is beyond the scope of what I'm prepared to testify to today. I'd be happy to take the question for the record in regard to the analysis that you cited here in regard to jobs.
All right. Well, we'll see. I hope those new coal jobs make a big difference and fill the gap. All right. I thought this is the report I mentioned earlier from CNN on credit scores dropping, just another negative economic indicator.
This morning, new data showing that credit scores are falling at the fastest pace in the U.S. since the Great Recession as Americans struggle to keep up with the rising cost of living. Let's go right to CNN's Matt Egan for this. This doesn't sound good.
Yeah, no, John, it's not. It's more evidence that some Americans, they're hurting because of the high cost of living and because of the return of student loans. So FICO had found that credit scores on average, they increased every single year between 2013 and last year when they dipped. And today, FICO says there's an even bigger drop this year. As you mentioned, the biggest since 2009 during the Great Recession. Credit scores, they're still pretty high, moving in the wrong direction, in part because more and more Americans are falling behind on their bills. FICO says that delinquency rates are at or near the highest level since 2009 on car loans, credit cards, and also on personal loans as well. And Gen Z, they're under even more pressure. FICO says that credit scores for Gen Z down by the most of any age group since 2020. And part of that problem, of course, is student debt, right? Starting in February, they started to report delinquencies on student loans for the first time since COVID. And FICO has found that a record high 29% of people who have student debt have been reported as delinquent. Only 62% have actually made a recent payment. And look at this, another 9%, they could be reported delinquent soon because they have student debt, but they have not made any recent payments. And it's not just student debt, right? You think about young people also contending with the worst job market for recent college graduates in years. I talked to a 22-year-old from Orlando who told me it took him 14 months and hundreds of job applications before he landed a job that wasn't a scam. But he said he's not making nearly enough money to get by, let alone to chip away at his $35,000 in student debt. So he said his credit scores have taken a drastic hit. And he's not alone. FICO found that almost 2/3, 64% of Gen Z student borrowers, they rely on more debt just to get by. That's people who have student debt. They've got to rely on credit cards and buy now, pay later, and also personal loans just to pay their bills. So, John, I do think this is just more evidence of the K-shaped economy, right, where a lot of people who have money in the market, they own their home, they're doing okay, others are not, and it just shows this disconnect where you got Wall Street, there's all this euphoria. Main Street, though, a lot of people, they're struggling.
Just to be clear, when you don't have a good credit score and your credit score drops, everything just spirals. It makes it so much harder.
It makes it even more expensive to borrow.
John, thanks for making that a very important point. I wasn't sure about that with the credit scores. John Berman on CNN. All right, and I've got Lawrence O'Donnell. Great commentary from Lawrence O'Donnell 2 nights ago on his show, The Last Word on MSNBC. I always love listening to Lawrence. He's a great guy, very passionate, very smart, very credible, very tough. And here he is.
Donald Trump is the only president of the United States who has ever blamed a murder on millions of voters who did not vote for him. Donald Trump knows that the 22-year-old Utah man accused of the murder grew up in a family of registered Republican parents who Donald Trump has now praised repeatedly. Today, Donald Trump said that the accused murderer's parents did everything right. Parents who can think, of course, that they've done everything right are not parents I've met. Parents whose kids end up facing murder charges surely can wonder from time to time what they might have gotten wrong. And so Donald Trump insults the intelligence of the entire country, including his own supporters, when he launches this mass libel of half the country. The 20-year-old man in Pennsylvania who shot at Donald Trump was a registered Republican. And the 22-year-old Utah man accused of murdering Charlie Cook has never voted. The single most murderous American political assassin was a registered Republican. And he is the only American political assassin who murdered more than one person. Timothy McVeigh was a veteran of the United States Army who, at 26 years old, in an instant, murdered 168 people in the federal building in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, in 1995. Registered Republican Timothy McVeigh attacked the federal building specifically to assassinate federal workers for his twisted right-wing political reasons. Registered Republican Timothy McVeigh came to hate the government in whose army he served. Timothy McVeigh murdered 19 children in the daycare center of that federal building in an instant by blowing up that building with a truck bomb. Registered Republican Timothy McVeigh's assassination target that day was all the federal workers in that building, and he didn't care who else would have to die in the process. That's how far Timothy McVeigh's insane right-wing ideology drove him. And Donald Trump had nothing to say about that. In 1995, Donald Trump could pick up the phone and get himself quoted in the New York tabloid newspapers whenever he wanted to. He could get himself booked on TV chat shows and say whatever he wanted to say. He could take out full-page ads in the New York Times and condemn people, as he had already done at that time, demanding the death penalty. In one case, for people who he wrongly believed were guilty of raping a woman in Central Park. There was no full-page ad by Donald Trump about Timothy McVeigh. Donald Trump didn't blame the Republican Party for what Timothy McVeigh did. No one blamed Republicans for what Timothy McVeigh did. There was no internet to blame yet, no social media to blame for poisoning Timothy McVeigh's mind. And it never crossed any politician's mind to blame millions of people who never met Timothy McVeigh. That is Donald Trump's uniquely perverse contribution to the aftermath of a public murder. What Donald Trump wants is agreement from his supporters and outrage from the millions of people he is libelously accusing of inciting murder. Because that means that we will not be covering the very bad news that continues to mount for Donald Trump, including headlines like this one in today's Wall Street Journal right there. Putin, Netanyahu march on with Trump on the sidelines. That is a very, very important headline for the world and a very bad headline for Donald Trump. Vladimir Putin and Benjamin Netanyahu proving every day how irrelevant Donald Trump is to their calculations about what they will do next. Remember Donald Trump's pointless trip to Alaska to welcome Vladimir Putin into the United States? Donald Trump said he would give Vladimir Putin 2 weeks after that to reach a peace agreement with Ukraine. And Vladimir Putin has continued his savage attacks on Ukraine and humiliated Donald Trump even more than he was before by sending Russian drones into NATO territory in Poland. And Donald Trump says nothing. Donald Trump just says libelous things about other people being to blame for the murder of Charlie Kirk. Donald Trump just wants to get half the country outraged at the other half of this country. And Donald Trump doesn't want anyone in this country to be outraged at Vladimir Putin.
Oh, hell yeah. Lawrence O'Donnell with great commentary on the last word 2 nights ago on MSNBC. All right, let's get to some comedy, shall we, before we get to the comedian and commentator JL Cauvin. First, we go to Stephen Colbert, fresh off his Emmy win on Sunday night in Los Angeles. He flies back. There he is in the Ed Sullivan Theater.
Speaking of Emmys, Donald Trump doesn't have one. Also, right now he's out of the country making his second state visit to the UK. But for a state visit, Trump's going to be keeping it surprisingly low profile. He's going to be at Windsor Castle behind closed doors, far from massive planned protests, and without delivering a traditional address to potential critics in Parliament. In fact, he's so unpopular over there that on the Windsor Castle grounds, and this is true, protesters laid out this colossal banner of Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein. That is huge. Did you see how big it is? What are they going to do with it after Trump's state visit? Children, we had a donation of a very unfortunate parachute for today's gym class. Oh, no, get out of there. Now, instead, Trump will be visiting the royal family, including King Charles. I cannot wait to see those two together. So, Charles, let me get this part straight. You cheated on your ex-wife with an older woman? Is that even legal? Is that like driving on the wrong side of the road? Trump's very excited about meeting the king.
It's an honor to have him as king. And, you know, I think he represents the country so well. I've watched. He's such an elegant gentleman.
He's such an elegant gentleman with his top hat and his monocle and his little cane. Nope, wait, that's Mr. Peanut. Hold on. Oh, God. Who did I just eat?
Yeah, it's very funny. Very funny. I wonder what he's going to do in May. I wonder if Netflix or some other giant company is going to pay him to do something similar with a live studio audience. Who knows? Maybe he'll run for office. I doubt it. Let's check in with Jimmy Kimmel, who did not win the Emmy, but thought that everybody should vote for Stephen. He actually put up a billboard in L.A. that said, vote for Stephen for the Emmy. So we love Jimmy Kimmel. Very funny monologue last night, as always.
Trump is in the UK, or as he has to be reminded not to call it, the UK. Paddington Unbearable is in England for an official visit with the royal family. Wait till he finds out tea time has nothing to do with golf. He's going to be very upset. The royals are expected to greet the president and first lady tomorrow, but some clever Brits are already rolling out, I wouldn't call it a red carpet exactly, but rather a King Kong-sized photo of Trump with his buddy Jeffrey Epstein. This is right outside Windsor Castle, where the Trumps will be staying. Melania, don't look out the window. You don't want to... That sign, which, by the way, really put Kinko's to the test, is especially timely because this trip he's taking was planned by the UK ambassador to Washington, a guy named Peter Mandelson, who was fired last week when they found out he wrote one of the letters in the Jeffrey Epstein birthday book, which means Pete will not be there for the visit he planned, which is too bad. He and Trump would have had a lot of gross things to talk about, I'm sure, but... He also spent some time bragging about his $200 million ballroom again. He said it's going to be the greatest ballroom anywhere in the world. Oh, how exhilarating for all of us. He's so excited for these balls, he can taste them. Trump claims he's going to pay for some of the cost of the ballroom as a gift to us. which thank you very much. We'll never be in it, but thank you very much. And he's already figured out where to get the money. Trump today became the first president to sue the New York Times. He's suing the New York Times for $15 billion for defamation. $15 billion. Where does he even come up? These are like numbers my children make up when they're talking about money. I thought he said the New York Times was failing. He thinks they have $15 billion? How much would he sue for if he thought they were doing well? Trump announced the suit this morning. He wrote, "Today I have the great honor of bringing a $15 billion defamation and libel lawsuit against the New York Times, one of the worst and most degenerate newspapers in the history of our country. The Times has engaged in a decades-long method of lying about your favorite president, me, my family business, the America First movement, MAGA, and our nation as a whole. The New York Times has been allowed to freely lie, smear, and defame me for far too long, and that stops now." And then he follows it with, "This suit is being brought in the great state of Florida." Uh-oh. And will be heard by Judge Dog the Bounty Hunter, my new appointee.
All right, there you go. Jimmy Kimmel last night on ABC, Colbert and the rest. That's a clip show. Those are the headlines, and that is the first segment of the show every weekday. At least I try. Most weekdays. I do it all by myself. I produce the whole thing. I pull the audio clips. I edit it. I host it. I get up real early to make sure that it's here for you. Most days, if I'm not up late with you at a Hangout especially, very dedicated to putting this show out every day, and so thankful and grateful that it matters to you, to so many of you. Got a really nice email yesterday from Kathy Nathan. A couple of you actually saw me on Hal Sparks' show on YouTube yesterday, and I included it on this show yesterday. I guess it cut off abruptly. I don't know what happened in the edit. I'm very sorry about the ending of yesterday's show. But Kathy said, "Love that you added your appearance with Hal Sparks. I know you aren't always able to include other appearances with the Daily Pod, but could you put them in your Patreon post or post them on the podcast so we could find them?" You know, I will. I do try to include most of them, Kathy. It's an oversight more likely than not if I don't, or if I didn't record on it or whatever. But I will try to keep those appearances. Sometimes I feel a little bit gratuitous or self-serving when I host me as a guest on another show, but it doesn't take much work. It's like a copy and paste, so I might as well add it there. And some of you actually really appreciate it. And Kathy said, "Hang in there. Thanks for being the center of my daily support network." Thank you for being here and part of mine, Kathy, and so many of the rest of you who are supporters and subscribers. Patreon.com/Pete Dominick. I can't do it without you. All right, let's get to my conversation with JL Cauvin. And you can watch this on YouTube. We were live yesterday around 1:30, I think. YouTube.com/standupwithpete is the link to watch and subscribe there, or on Substack, or on Twitter or Instagram or Facebook. I go live on all of those platforms now when I do, which is most days, different times. And yesterday, JL and I had a great conversation. You can listen to him on his own podcast, 2 podcasts, Making Podcasts Great Again, where he appears doing the best Trump impression in the world. And, of course, Rain on Your Parade, where you can hear his commentary on all things entertainment, political, culture, comedy. Love JL anytime he joins. One of my favorite commentators and comedians, of course. And he is now, he's a Georgetown educated lawyer, and he's now working for a great nonprofit which helps keep people in their homes and fight poverty. And we love him. He might even run for Congress in New Jersey. If you want to support him, you can do that on Patreon. You can get a cameo from him. You can send him money, and you can go see him live. All those dates are at jlcomedy.com. Let's do it right now with our friend JL Cauvin. How do you see everything? Are we doomed?
Yeah. What I'd like to say to people watching right now or who will join is don't make me a loser to the David K. Johnston and Jared Yates Sexton stream numbers. I don't want to see that they have, 1.3K views and I have 82.
Well, if you go to @Pete Dominick and you retweet from your Twitter, especially, your people will then be able to watch.
Let's see if I'm logged in.
I think that'll put us really through the roof. Most of them will be probably white supremacists, but
yeah, I'm not logged in on this computer and I don't want to break away to go get my phone. So I'm just going to have to rely on, word of mouth when this is done.
Well, we're happy to have you here. The folks will roll in. You know, I don't preview or promote these. It's just one extra step, but I surprise people and go live. So whoever's available, stop in and join us and join the live chat. We're happy to have you here to talk to one of my favorite people to talk to about all of the things, including media and politics, current events, and the cultural zeitgeist. JL Cauvin.
It's great to be here. I do think we are. I think we are doomed. I think we are in a sort of a downward spiral that really we're not equipped anymore to get out of. I don't want to be too pessimistic in terms of the timeline, but there's no reason to think that we can turn this around. That's really that's the main problem, I think. Just as our political system is reliant on the decency of Republicans, January 2021, say anything you want about all sorts of policies and all sorts of this. January 2021 is where Mitch McConnell led the GOP off a cliff, and they can't come back from that. And we have a system structurally creating a structural barrier to Democrats assuming enough control to sort of right the ship. And I mean like foundationally. I'm not even talking necessarily about policy. I'm just talking about I don't know the next time we'll ever have 60 Democratic senators in the Senate. I don't know the next time we'll have a Supreme Court that isn't far right dominated. And the House is the House, and that they can be a stopgap. But will we have a citizenry that appreciates that sometimes, because I don't think people appreciated it with the Joe Biden White House, that sometimes, a Democrat House might not be able to get much done if they don't have the White House and the Senate, but they can halt the degradation that is going on. But we seem conditioned to not treat that as a win. I've made the analogy before that sometimes politics is playing defense. You don't get mad in football when your defense doesn't score a bunch of touchdowns. You get happy when they simply stop the other team from doing damage.
Yeah.
But we live in a world where offense. So if my team, if the Democrats aren't, what have the Democrats even done? I heard that so much under Biden, and my answer was always a remarkable amount given the zero majority in the U.S. Senate. That is on a per capita basis, the Joe Biden term was incredibly effective, incredibly impactful. When you rate it on Lyndon Johnson and FDR did humongous things with gigantic majorities. Joe Biden did big things with literally no majority.
Yeah.
And
investment into American infrastructure in our lifetime.
Right. And we're allowing Trump. I mean, my podcast today is going to be about Charlie Kirk. I'm going into the city this evening to record Rain on Your Parade. But next week's I've already planned, which will be on newspapers, because the thing that I've been saying a lot is I think the thing that goes underreported in our political problems is what I've termed citizen malpractice, which is people not reading, people not doing their duty to be informed, that is in their power. People can complain about certain media sources and bias and this and that, but I think we live in a country where way too many people have checked out of doing their due diligence as a citizen.
Right.
And I don't know how you fix all that I just said. I don't know how you fix one half of the country politically is morally bankrupt. Like if you follow Donald Trump, there's a level of moral bankruptcy there. Our structures, the founders did not envision that we'd be in this kind of place with a spineless Republican Party that has given up. And I think it was Ezra Klein today said on his podcast, basically the founders couldn't have envisioned a massive political party where they would align not for their constitutional powers, but for their political party, so that instead of a court and a Congress concerned about their own power, you have a Republican through line that just says, well, we're just doing what Trump says. So now Congress, it's a cliche that nobody pays attention to. It really is. Congress is supposed to be the most powerful branch. And they've given up that power. And I think it's easy both from a legislative standpoint and as a citizen to just kind of go, well, the president's the guy. Like, he's the guy, like, the president's the leader. And that has led us to bad government and lazy citizenship.
I got to ask you, let's dial it back just to the current moment. You're going to be doing your episode later on your podcast and talking about Charlie Kirk. Give me the broad outlines, it's almost a week since he was assassinated in front of everybody. And we've spent a lot of time now analyzing the assassin, the kid, the shooter, and what his motivations were. And it's not clear. It's pretty confusing, as a matter of fact, it would seem, but that hasn't stopped everyone from Trump to his attorney general to everybody on the right saying that it was the left and that they're going to destroy the left, Stephen Miller said on the J.D. Vance hosted Charlie Kirk podcast, which, by the way, took place.
Always nice if you can take a 3-hour break from the second most powerful position on earth to do a podcast for your friend.
A for-profit podcast, not saying J.D. Vance got paid, but somebody got paid for that podcast, and it was done.
I think it was stamps.com.
It was done, I think it was hoods.org, but it was done.
They're a nonprofit? That's nice, giving back.
Well, now it is. All the left-wing nonprofits, back to the point, are going to be attacked and destroyed. What do you make of, first, the automatic blaming of the left? This is the left. This is them. The bullets only go one direction, which is what Eric Trump has been saying. They're trying to gaslight us into thinking that there are far more violent attempts, threats, and successful attacks by people that are firmly on the left. What do you make of how they have so far been able to take the narrative and run away with it?
I will say, first off, just to show that I'm slightly even-handed, I have been alarmed because I don't, like you said, I don't know what exactly this kid's story was. It's still coming out piecemeal. Nobody seems to have a definitive story. That being said, I have seen definitive takes on both sides telling me he was a MAGA conservative and he was a, woke leftist. Like, I have seen both of those takes. Now, it matters that one of those takes is coming from the presidency, but I'm just saying I have seen like equally 100%. And I'm a smart guy and I pay attention, but it is alarming to open up social media and I can just scroll and get definitive 100% takes in completely opposite directions. And at least I know I'm going, yes, I lean left, of course, and I don't trust the Trump administration. But at this moment, I'm like, well, this just looks ridiculous. But that said, Trump has the power. They have the bullhorn. They have a cult-like mentality among their half of the country or half of voters. And, it's ridiculous. It's scary, though, but it's also the thing that makes it less scary to me is how predictable it's been. The fear comes from how did more people not know that they were going to play the autocrat 101 playbook?
Well, why do you say, how do we know that what people or what more people thought? I mean, most people assumed that they were going to do this. No?
Most people in your circle, I don't know how you can say that when you have you have half the country doesn't vote. Then you have half of the voters are down with Trump. And some of those voters really believe because they silo themselves off. It's like hypnosis. People always say, you got to be susceptible to hypnosis. Whenever somebody makes an excuse for a Trump voter, I go, yeah, but I could watch Fox News all day long. And I'll go, why are they so angry? Where is the news reporting? Why are these people dumb? Like, I wouldn't go, you know what? After having Sean Hannity smugly smirk at me for 3 months, I'm starting to see his point of view. You have to be open to that.
Sure.
To accept. But a lot of people are and either don't know about these other incidences or have been conditioned to be like, yeah, well, the left, it's not the same. And the anti-Semitism thing is the simplest example for me. They turned, with the help of the Heritage Foundation, anti-Semitism, like protests, and yes, some threats, some vile language, some malfeasance into an entire Ivy League college movement against Jews. They spun that so hard. And my whole thing was, you know what right-wing anti-Semitism looks like? 10 dead people in a Pittsburgh synagogue.
That's right.
And somehow kids being shitty on college campuses, no one's excusing that. No one's saying that's okay. But it's like, have we forgotten, if you hammer the public with anti-Semitism on the left, anti-Semitism on the left, you forget that there's 10 dead Jewish people in Pittsburgh because of right-wing anti-Semitism. And the same thing with this. Yes, the Charlie Kirk was an incredibly high-profile assassination. There's no denying that. Like, there's no denying that he was an incredibly powerful and high-profile person in the conservative movement. So I understand if somebody wants to call it like, you know, the Minnesota murders were heinous, but they were not as big figures as Charlie Kirk. I think that's undeniable. What is wrong is acting like those things never even happened or didn't exist. And yet they are able to do this simpleton, dumb version of 1984. Like, they don't even have to be good at this. They can just kind of tell their followers and they go, yeah, like it's a subscription service, like going right to their brain where it's like, we've uploaded, it's like the dumb Matrix. We've uploaded new content for you. The old stories no longer exist in your brain. The new one is the left are a bunch of, remember how he told you the left were pussies who hated guns and couldn't be trusted with security or are lethality, according to Cobra Kai Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth? Well, new update, they're bloodthirsty animals trying to kill you. So forget the fact, just like Biden, he's an old, feeble piece of shit. Also a mob-level mastermind dominating politics and ruining the right. And so it's like an update to your computer. Their minds, like, it's like, forget the whole thing before. New paradigm. The left are bloodthirsty animals armed to the teeth, ready to take over our country.
What do you make of yesterday? Trump was asked about the Minnesota House Speaker, Melissa Hortford, I think her name was. Yeah. And of course, it went viral because he was like, who? And why didn't you fly the flag half-staff when she was assassinated? And he says, who? Of course he knows who it is. Did he forget? Was it reckless? Is he just
That's actually what Stone Cold Steve Austin used to do in the ring. Or no, he said what? I'm sorry. Wrong catchphrase.
What is it? What was that moment about? What do you think of that moment? And the fact that he said had the governor called me and asked me to, I would have done it.
Right, which is a lie.
In fact, he wouldn't. He was asked if he's going to call the governor, and he's like, "What use would that do? Well, why would I do that?"
I think I'm misremembering. I thought he was kind of more crude in his dismissal of calling Tim Walz at the time.
Maybe. Yeah.
In terms of like, you know, he's a nut. That guy's a nut or something. But he's obviously lying. I don't think this is I think he doesn't care, and it's very gross and very vulgar, and they don't want, like, I hate talking like they don't want. I look at actions. You support Trump. This is what you want. So I don't think it's crazy to be like, the right wants, you know, conflict and they want to like hurt liberals. Yes. I mean, that's what Trump runs on. That's what he talks about. That's what he campaigns on. That's how he promotes himself. So I'm not making that up in some sort of paranoid left wing. Oh, we both think it's us versus them. I could give a shit about those people. I'd be content to just let them, you know, live in their fantasy, except they've empowered the worst people in our country to make law and destroy the environment. And so, but he's a liar. It's like he lies like he breathes. It's not, you know what I mean? It's not even a question. It's just, of course he's lying. Did I freeze? I see you moving now. Did you hear all that?
What do you make of the conversation about who Charlie Kirk was and what he represented, the quote celebrations of his life? He was one of the most hate-filled, influentially hateful people in all of the country, and now we're reviewing him in ways. What do you make of that?
I hope I'm okay. There you are. Your voice was coming through, but your picture was frozen. But I'm coming through good, right?
It's a little sketchy. I think it's on my end. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, I compared Charlie Kirk. People are conflating value to free speech and value to America's traditions as positive value on the discourse and for American people. The Nazis who wanted to march in Skokie in the 70s. This is a case we always learn about, we learn about in law school. And the ACLU, it's one of their famous cases. Like Skokie was a town with a decent number of Holocaust survivors. So the Nazis wanted to march there. And for all good reasons, many people were against it. But the Constitution is the Constitution. And the ACLU, I believe, fought for them and won. And I was corrected online. I don't believe they actually ever marched. In law school, you only get to the case. You don't even give a shit about what happened after. But the law is what matters. And to me, saying that knowing the Skokie case is me saying, yes, free speech is incredibly important in this country. And the Nazis marching or trying to march in that town is an incredible lesson about the free speech in America. Doesn't mean the Nazis' message needs to be lionized or praised or treated like all of a sudden they're a martyr for good. And so I said this during the chat, the Hangout. This wasn't performative. I felt bad when he was assassinated, just instinctively. It wasn't me trying to go like, oh, we need a moment of silence and we need to really reflect. I felt bad. I felt bad for the country, and I also felt bad that this guy, whose views I found awful, whose gimmick I found sort of BS, his debate thing. It was really just kind of, debate for a content ADD world. It wasn't like, this wasn't Christopher Hitchens getting in front of a college campus and really showing rhetorical skill and brilliance.
Right.
I've read some of that guy's stuff. Like I'm not an atheist. I love his writing. You know what I mean? Like that's an intellectual.
Yeah, sure.
And this was not that. This was intellectual for an age that doesn't like intellectuals anymore. That said, a man slain in a manner so violent in front of so many people while engaging in speech is heinous to me and was upsetting. Not like, oh my God, I've lost somebody I dearly care about or that I dearly respected, but what he represented, I do believe in that. I do believe it was very bad for our country and sad for his family. At least his two kids aren't, terrible people.
Yeah, but by the way, just one more addition to that, he is, as predicted, far more popular now than he ever was. Everything he has done has become very popular. His podcast is now tops. His social media following, which is already massive.
J.D. Vance is like the Brian Johnson, like he replaced Bon Scott in AC/DC, and people are like, should we even do this? And now it's even bigger. They're even better with J.D. Vance in the role of Charlie Kirk.
So killing him is like Obi-Wan Kenobi. It made him stronger in death, potentially, before. Because, somebody said at the chat the other night, I'm glad he's off the board, meaning he was doing so much damage. But arguably, even though he's dead, his work will now become more popular and people will see him as credible because someone wanted to take him off the board. It could be argued, I believe.
And I found it, I've been a Yankee fan since I'm probably 5 years old. And over the years in my adulthood, like since Trump came to president, and I know people say, what does that have to do with politics? When you like a team and you see so many members of the team that you respected in the past and present, being like big Trump fans, in my mind, I'm going, you play in a league with a lot of Latin and black men, and some of those Latin and black men like Trump. You work in a community of the Bronx Bombers. You work in a lower income community full of brown and black people. And this is the type of person that you support. And seeing him pose with the team for photos and them doing a moment of silence for Charlie Kirk at like the Yankee game, like I was just like, is this just a wing of MAGA now? Are you even a baseball team? And I did appreciate that some of the players, didn't appear in the team photo with Trump. and that's got to be on purpose.
I didn't know that.
You know, you don't make a big stink of it because you don't want the focus to be on you. But like when a guy like Giancarlo Stanton, a big star, a former MVP, isn't in the photo with the president, you have to assume that was intentional. And my question is always, why aren't more people doing that? Even if you want to do it silently, you don't want to be a protester, you don't want the spotlight, but you still have your personal integrity. Like Bad Bunny. Let me give you an example of a guy that I like a couple of his songs, but I love the fact this guy's as big as Taylor Swift, basically. Or maybe he's just under Taylor Swift in terms of global and United States popularity. And he like cut out the US from his world tour, that's a big market to cut out because of ICE and things. You know, he doesn't want his concerts being, you know, he was fearful that his concerts might be targets for ICE. And I thought that's somebody, he's not short of money, which is always my case. When somebody's rich, look at these billionaires. Doesn't that give you even more freedom?
Right.
To state your mind instead of now you're just a prisoner of your own wealth? That doesn't seem enjoyable at all. And to see somebody like that, who obviously has money regardless, he doesn't need the U.S., but the U.S. is a humongous market to just skip on your big tour. And I thought that was just something very interesting and admirable, you know.
What do you make of the threats that Stephen Miller and Pam Bondi and others are making today and the days afterwards about?
You mean an attorney general who doesn't believe in free speech?
You know, it's Matt Walsh, who's this far right conspiracy theorist, Christian nationalist guy, is calling for her to be fired today because she's cracking down on some printing shop, some printer who had, by the way, been fired. He wouldn't print up Charlie Kirk vigil flyers. He said no. Well, she's going to prosecute him for that now. And Matt Walsh is mad. He's like, we fought for years to be able to not serve people that we didn't agree with, didn't like, whatever. And now you're reversing all of that. Not to mention what you just mentioned, everybody's talking about, oh, if he was such a warrior for free speech, why are hundreds of people being fired from their jobs at anywhere from the Washington Post to your local school? Our school board, the next town over, is going after a board member who said something which was not in any way egregious. I mean, what do you make of these actions?
Well, it reminds me of the time, I think in high school, when I wanted a moment of silence when Jeffrey Dahmer was murdered in prison. And my teacher sent me to the principal's office. And I was like, wow, I'm sorry that I just wanted a moment of silence for somebody slain in a sad and terrible manner in our prisons. I guess I'm the bad guy. Wow. No, I think, just like Marjorie Taylor Greene accidentally doing something Christian by defending the children of Gaza, a broken human is right twice a day, I think is the phrase. And Matt Walsh here is at least being consistent on a speech issue, and a pretty clear one, it would seem. But yeah, Stephen Miller is a ghoul. He's an atrocious human being. This is, and I hate to compare this to gun violence, but this feels like Stephen Miller feels like, a trench coat mafia type, but he doesn't have to go shoot up Duke or his high school. He has a weapon more powerful than a gun. He has Donald Trump to wage violence and cruelty on every group of people he's ever disagreed with or hated. And so that's, if he feels like the bullied kid who bided his time, found the tool, and is now going to town on it. Like, he has that friendless, miserable energy that makes you think this could have gone a different way with him sometime in his life. But instead, he was patient and now has somebody who can, help destroy American democracy, which is so much cooler than being violent at your high school if you just have the patience for it.
God, that's such an amazing and terrifyingly accurate analysis of his motivations and capabilities and power that he now has. Who would have ever thought that guy gotten to where he got So many of us would love to have that power to go back and punish all of our bullies and the Latino girl who said no when we were in high school.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. I do have till 2:20 in case you were looking.
I was about to wrap it up. I gotta go. I gotta go.
Oh, you have to go. No, actually, I have to go, Pete.
No, I have to leave. I have to go make a salad.
I can show you the text that show I needed to leave first.
I can show you that I had just instant messaged other people that I really wish that you would let me go. And I said that a few minutes ago when you were talking. So
okay.
You can put your text up against mine. All right. New Ran Your Parade drops this Thursday. What else are we plugging?
Oh, yeah. We got Making Podcasts Great Again, which goes live tonight for everybody. It's on Patreon already, but that is, basically the Trump episode dedicated to Charlie Kirk. So that's going to be some good stuff you want. And to be fair, like so many tragedies that I've had Trump comment on, 95% of the humor is still about Trump being a scumbag and insensitive or not caring. It's really not most of the time about, oh, here I am ripping Charlie Kirk for a while. It's more like, here's me portraying Trump.
Just in your words, we all know, but when your words, it's hilarious. Everybody in the live chat is saying, no, I need to leave. In your words, what do you make of the lack of any remorse that he has? He was asked, how are you feeling about your friend Charlie Kirk dying? And he's like, I feel pretty good. Look at my ballroom. And then he was at the Yankee game doing the double jerk off motion the next night or that night. What do you make of how do you characterize that just in your words? We all know about the narcissism and the different psychological analysis that we believe it is, but what do you embody the man?
We're watching a guy with like a serial killer mentality be our president. Like, that's what it feels like. It feels like the man can't. In fact, I feel like serial killers would be conscious of like masking their deficiency and being like, I'm very upset. This is a very sad moment, to throw people off the scent. He doesn't seem capable of that. So it's like, how do you feel about Charlie Kirk's death? I'm doing well. I had great sex last night. I guess death is sort of a turn on to my wife, Melatoma. And it's, so we're doing great, and I sort of wish Charlie Kirk's wife was a little hotter, because I could probably get sort of that, sympathy, like the Hunter Biden method, like, oh, we're both grieving, why don't we have sex to get over it kind of a thing. But she's just not hot enough. But no, we miss what was his name? Charlie Brown. We miss Charlie Brown and Wampa Womp Womp. So that's him. And so that's what I try to convey, is just his, focus. It's also an easier way to be less cruel, is to focus on his perpetual and continuing shittiness rather than to spend too much time mocking, the deceased. But as far as promoting, if I can just promote some shows also.
Yeah.
Morristown, New Jersey, this Friday at the Mayo Performing Arts Center, in October. I'm in D.C. at the D.C. Comedy Loft, and at Punchline in Philadelphia on October 22nd. And then November, I'm in Huntington, New York. The info is all on my website, jlcomedy.com. And then December, 3 nights in Toronto. We're doing a sequel to Trump versus Canada, and then I'm recording that. And then I'm recording a new stand-up special on the 19th and 20th. So busy week in Toronto.
Wow. Okay.
And then December 28th, Charlotte, North Carolina. So Pete Dominic Nation, please, if you heard any city that you live near there, please get the tickets. This is my one plea. People often wait too long to get tickets, and then clubs get antsy where it's like, tickets are so 2 days out. And if you know you're going or want to go or can go or have friends in those areas, please just get the tickets now. Greatly appreciate it.
And you can find out more at jlcauvin.com.
Mm-hmm. Or JL Comedy if you don't want to spell my French name.
There you go, everybody. Thank you very much, my friend, for joining us. And to the over 100 people who are watching live, we appreciate you stopping by, too. And JL didn't even plug it. Neither did I. How about it? Patreon.com/Pete Dominic, so I can do these every day. And JL Cauvin, you are the man. Bye, everybody. Yeah. Well, I hope you like that. As always, you can watch it on YouTube. You can support JL in all the ways on CAmeo, on Patreon, buy his albums, see him live, as you just heard, jlcomedy.com. That's all I've got for you today. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm off to the woods with my friend Zats. That'll be replenishing. Very much needed this week. I hope that you get outside, touch grass, as they say. Touch something else. People see touch grass at like, that phrase irks me. At first I liked it. It's like, watch this space. I liked it first, and I'm like, ugh, I don't like it anymore. It can make me feel a little cringe. So touch anything. Touch trees. Touch trees. Let's start saying that. Touch clouds. The way of saying get some fresh air, and it'll make you feel better. Many of you inspire me to do that with your vitamin N picture. So if you get out there, send me a photo of nature with no man-made objects. If you just got to point it to the sky because there's too much cement around you, do that. Capture the full moon or a sunrise or sunset and send them to me. I open every day's subscriber email with that photo, vitamin N. So send them my way if you haven't in a while, you honeybees. Thank you very much for listening all the way to the end. I'll talk to you tomorrow. Bye-bye. Jon Carroll, take us away.
Stand our ground, and that's stand up, stand up. Well, the founding fathers saw a land for all. They had to stand up, they had to stand up. They had a keen imagination for a crystal ball, drawing all the plans of stand up. But all they had to go on was the time they were in, with other causes for laws, and since they weren't even sin, they knew that change was gonna come before the change could begin. They had to stand up. All right, they had to stand up. We got to stand up. We got to look the devil square in the eye. We got to let him know it's his time to go, and make it clear when all we hear is a lie. Why you lying awake wondering where the money all went? It'll be the cost of freedom that'll go unspent. You can see him flee the scene of that experiment if you stand up. Alright, we got to speak up, we got to reach up and raise your voice in every way you know how. Don't be toes up, you got to show up. Ain't no better time to do it but now. No need to pledge allegiance to no wanton tribe. Rise up, show obedience to the voice inside, and listen well and it'll tell you not to run and hide. It says stand